pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please.
D.A. Sims. Councilman Raleigh. Councilwoman Tanner. Ms. LeBlanc.
Here.
Mr. Shane.
Here.
Councilman Laughlin.
Here.
Kevin Davis.
Here.
Gina Hayes. Here. Scott Delacroix.
Here.
General Ernst.
Here.
Councilman Impastato. We have a quorum.
Great, thank you. Approval of minutes from the last meeting. I have a motion. Do you have to read it?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you.
Do we have a second?
We need a second. Second. By Carl. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Okay. Item new business. Presentation by Ms. Jackson, Deputy City Manager of Douglasville, Georgia, and Vice President, Southeast Region. We're ready to go ahead with that, or?
Ms. Jackson, can you hear us?
Can you hear us?
Okay.
She can hear us,
We
but
can't.
I'm not hearing you yet. Hold on 1 minute.
Ashley, should I turn the lectern mic off?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay.
Okay. Are we ready, Mary? Or we ready?
Can she talk? Ask her to talk. Ms. Jackson, can you hear us?
Video.
She can hear us.
She can hear us.
What did I do?
No, that's my computer screen. It looks like she's muted. Looks like her mic is off. It looks like her mic is off.
How about now? Bear with us, we're working on it.
Can you hear us?
Ashley, y'all want that mic off, right? It's on now. I'd have called him myself.
Can you hear us?
I can. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Good job. Hello, Ms. Jackson. How are you?
Hello, how are you?
Great. Thank you so much for making a presentation to us. We appreciate it. We're all ears, so the floor is yours.
Okay, just to confirm, have you all received the PowerPoint presentation?
Yes, we have.
Okay, perfect. Just wanted to make sure. And would you all prefer if I share my screen, or are you good with following along with me?
We can follow along.
We'll follow along.
No, shouldn't for the public
Okay,
record.
perfect. Well, thank you so much. My name is Chelsea Jackson. I am the ICMA Southeast Regional Vice President. With me today, I also have Mr. Randy Reed. He is the ICMA Southeast Regional Director. He keeps all of us in line in the Southeast. I was connected through you all. I spoke with Christine as well as a couple of individuals from Tulane University. I do visit Tulane at least once or twice a year to help with their MPA program. And so they connected us all together, and we kind of had a short conversation about the council manager form of government. So just have a brief presentation which you all have, and please feel free to stop me at any time as it relates to some of the some questions that you all may have, but I'll try to zip through this because I know you all have, a long agenda.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, so just going in the second slide, of course, well, I'll back up. Randy, do you want to make a brief introduction prior to me put in?
I'll just real briefly out it. I have been a practicing city and county manager myself for 40 years in 3 states, running both cities and counties. And I've worked with ICMA the last 14 years, visiting states, having discussions with charter commissions like yourself. So I'll be happy to contribute anything I can as you go along. Turn it back over to Chelsea.
Thank you, Randy. You know, at any time, please jump in. I'm over in the metro Atlanta area in Douglasville, Georgia. But a little fun fact, my city manager, she's from Napoleonville, Louisiana. So she says hello to everyone.
Great.
Okay, so we'll jump right in. Second slide talks about what is the council manager form of government. Just, straight to the point, it's the voters electing the governing body, and then the governing body appointing a professional manager. And the professional manager oversees the day-to-day operations for the of the department directors, as well as everyone that is employed at that city or county. With the forms of local government, just going to slide 3, I just wanted to show everyone how many cities we actually have throughout the U.S. that have a council manager form of government. So it is about 40%.
Can you share your screen?
Yes,
Thank
I
you.
can.
Great, thank you. We can see it now. Thank you.
There we go. Okay. So council manager form of government, like I said, it's the voters electing the governing body, and then the governing body appointing a professional manager to carry out the day-to-day operations. That professional manager also oversees the department directors and all other staff members that work in that municipality. So I'm right here is where I left off stating how many actual forms of governments that we have and kind of split them up. Talking relating to the council manager form of government, it's about 40% in the U.S. Of municipalities with a population over 2,500. After that, of course, it's one of the other most popular form of governments would be about 38%, which is the mayor council form of government. After that is commission, town meeting, but the 2 most popular ones is council manager form of government and mayor council form of government. Just a couple more stats as it relates to the population of the actual cities and counties throughout the U.S. As you can see, that majority of the cities with the population over 500 or a population of under 5,000, they adopt a mayor and council form of government. You'll see highlighted in red that most cities in the population from 5,000 to 250,000, they operate under that council manager structure. There is an even split for cities with populations around the 250 to 500,000, which are highlighted in green. So it's about 50-50 as it relates to that form of government. And cities, we've seen that cities tend to move toward a council manager form of government based on the complexity of issues that they have. So there's no written rule stating if the population is over a certain amount that, they tend to vary one way or the other. Is usually based upon the complexity of the issues with that government and that municipality they have to address. And a little bit about the manager versus mayor, or parish president. And Kristen or Mary, feel free to jump in at any time just to kind of correct me as relates to you all's form of government and what each individual is called. But many people believe that the manager and mayor are equivalents of each other, with the only distinction being that the mayor is elected and the manager is appointed. There is a perception of that, but the authorities of those two individuals are a little different. And the powers are very different as well. So primarily, if you look on the left, the manager is hired and fired by the council, and they're obligated to meet their adopted goals and objectives and outcomes that the council gives them. Even if the council adopts a policy that is opposite of the manager's recommendation or beliefs, the manager is still held accountable by the council to fully achieve the ends that are set forth by the council. Or they can resign from their position. On the other end, in like a mayor council form of government, the mayor is seen separate from the council and is under no obligation to fully achieve the goals of that desired community. So instead, sometimes we see where, the mayor serves their own political agenda and can serve as an ally or an obstacle to a council if the mayor chooses. So that's the one thing we like to just, in a council manager form of government, the professional manager, they must and they're obligated to carry out those day-to-day operations, that overall vision and policy that's set forth by a council and a mayor. Another thing that's often confused with the council manager form of government and mayor council form of government is that the mayor, under the council manager form of government, the mayor is stripped of their duties and their powers. But if you look at the chart as shown here, the majority of the responsibilities are pretty much identical in both forms of government. For example, in council manager, they advance the vision for the city. Same thing with mayor and council. Also, any type of ceremonies, any type of events, the mayor is seen as that chief, that CEO type, not the manager. They're the ceremonial head. They meet with constituents. They help develop policy for council's consideration. They also set council agenda, and they run and oversee all council meetings. So as you see here, there are powers a mayor and council. Mayor does not have with some of the items as it relates to council manager form of government. So with council manager form of government, the mayor can vote on all items coming before at a council meeting. But if you've seen in other forms of government, they have the ability to veto any council action, but may not necessarily have the ability to vote on all of those items. And then also, like I say, they can veto those action items if they disagree with anything that the council deems appropriate and they want to bring before that meeting. Moving on to why council manager is the preferred form of local government. So basically, when you look at what that council manager form of government is, it's basically a collaborative form of government. You have that mayor or that head CEO who's accountable for providing that strong leadership. They have results. They give the manager clear direction and policy and guidance from that council. Then you have the council who's accountable for determining what outcomes are best suited to address the needs and interests of the people that have elected them. And then you have that city manager or that county county manager who is accountable for the effective and efficient operation of government to deliver on the goals and objectives adopted by that elected body. So we always say mayor and council sets policy, and then they have a professional manager that helps carry out that policy and that vision to handle day-to-day operations. Going into a little bit deeper of how it works, appointing a manager. So the manager is appointed by the majority vote of council for a definite or an indefinite term. Just for example, some city or county managers or administrators, they may be appointed for a year in their first term, and then after that, they may be appointed for about a 4-year term. Most of these individuals are on a contract and they're serving at will. The council, including the mayor, may terminate the manager by majority vote at any time, and then the appointment should be based on professional experience, administrative qualifications, and education, and then political affiliation should not be influenced by the appointment. Just a little further down in that org chart, of course, you have the council and the mayor, you have the administrator, the manager, and then the department head. So the elected body, as stated, hires the manager or the administrator. Then the manager and the administrator, they hire the department directors, and then the department directors or department heads, they hire that professional staff to help carry on that vision and those operations. The budget process, of course, in consultation with the elected body, the manager prepares a budget or to be considered based upon the priorities that the elected body has given them for the year. Then the elected body makes any changes to the proposed budget it deems necessary. And then from there, the manager is responsible for administering the budget and making sure they have a balanced budget to bring before the elected body to be approved. A couple more things is role of a city manager, county manager is they work in partnership with the elected officials to offer professional expertise, and they have experience with their consideration as it relates to policy decisions. They provide strategic planning, long-term planning. They have community-wide benefits rather than short-term political goals. They look at a vast majority of master plans and long-range planning. They assure that the staff at all levels have the knowledge and skills to deliver programs and have a positive service delivery experience, as well as they support the council by ensuring its vision and policies are carried out fully by staff, regardless of any personal or political sentiment towards the council's visions or policies. I always like to remind people that at ICMA and, appointed officials who serve in that association and serve under that council manager form of government, we are nonpartisan, so we carry out all goals and objectives set forth by the elected body, regardless of our personal beliefs. As it relates to the value proposition of a council manager form of government, they take a long-term community-wide perspective to ensure they have sustainable results. So it's not just let's do this for a year and then we turn around and we have different goals and different objectives. We make sure that every goal that we carry out every year, it ultimately speaks to all of our plans and what we want to see happen in the community over time. Also assures that staff are led by an executive who is committed to a codified code of ethics and that they practice in the service of public values. Also, a professional manager builds consensus among diverse interactions. They provide a voice of technical expertise among political needs and interests. They also provide a greater quality solution by offering what I talked about earlier about a nonpartisan perspective on policy and discussions. And then, of course, developing organizational excellence by having innovation in hiring, developing and retaining staff, as well as budgetary needs as well. And then just a couple of research findings, which I believe, when I looked up everything, what I believe is true, and a lot of things that I've seen in Douglasville since I've been here over the last 9 years is council manager cities have strong budgetary influence that can also help affect the bond ratings as it relates to municipal bond ratings. Council manager cities tend to be equipped with more advanced information systems, as well as council manager governments. They have a sophisticated way of revenue forecasting, expenditure analysis techniques, as well as how to have those efficiency gains year after year, and not just depending upon 1 year of efficiency gain, as well as there's a major emphasis on strategic planning and how that will carry on through years and decades to come. A couple of things, key considerations when thinking about, switching your form of government to council manager form of government. Couple of questions. Should the chief, we say CAO, Chief Administrative Officer at ICMA, but should they be accountable to the people on a daily basis or to the electorate once every 4 years? Should department head be hired based on qualifications or political allegiance? Do organizations thrive with consistent and effective service or with mass turnover at the most senior level positions? Do we place a greater value on an executive officer or administrative officer having the proven ability to run a city effectively or a proven ability to run a political campaign effectively? And is running the city a full-time job or a part-time activity? Those are just a couple of questions when considering, making a change from council manager form of government, to council manager form of government from a different type of form of government. And then try to make it short and sweet. So with that, I will answer any questions. I know Randy, if you want to add anything prior to them asking questions as well.
No,
Great.
I think you covered it.
Thank you.
Be happy to answer any questions.
Great presentation. Thank you very much. Anybody have any questions or comments? Feel free.
I have a question.
Joe?
Can you tell us some of the cons of the council manager form of government that you've experienced, either of you?
Well, I've always served in communities that have a council manager form of government. I believe, and Randy, I'll toss it over to you for this as well. One of the cons would be all the decisions, and it wouldn't be on the staff side, it would be on the elected body side. It would be most of the decisions that are made are not made on a political party emphasis. They're pretty much made based upon everyone in that community. So what you'll see in another form of government is the voters are actually leading a lot of those charges. And as professional managers, you realize that everyone in the community are not voters. And that could be individuals that are from the age of 0 to 17 years of age and they can't vote. Or you'll see the individuals, speaking to the individuals that necessarily don't vote. So council manager form of government has an overall bird's eye view and tries to look at the full bigger picture and not just the voters, but per se the residents. And Randy, if you had anything to add to that.
Well, I would think the system is the preferred system, I believe, and the problems I would think would come about more with not hiring a properly trained person, or if you're hiring someone who admittedly for any reason is hired that is not experienced, that you help them join groups like ICMA or get the training that they need. So it depends upon the size of the community, but I think you could hire somebody as a city manager who's not qualified. That's why we emphasize qualifications. And also, obviously, like any other job, if somebody has experience doing it, they will probably be a stronger candidate than someone that does not. So one temptation that might cause a problem is, should you decide to go this way, but really not pay attention to who you're hiring, but then the system's based on the fact that you have a qualified professional manager. I would even add, even in those jurisdictions that she showed you that are larger and have mayors, almost all of those jurisdictions have professional CAOs that are assisting mayors run the community. So it's really about the professionalism of your government. And more professional governments tend to have less problems like white-collar crime. That's another statistic. They tend to be more crime-free or problem-free, and they tend to use higher-level systems of solving problems and doing budgeting. So I think the weakness would be, people could talk about other weaknesses, but I think good managers that have the experience or the qualifications try to listen very close to what their council's talking. They're listening constantly. That's one of the things you have to do. And they're trying to make sure that they're implementing the will of the entire governing body.
I had one more question. Can you elaborate on the size of the council typically with these forms of government, or with this form of government?
I mean, I would answer, most of our members probably work for councils that are between 5 and 9. 7 is very common. It's usually always an odd number. Sometimes in a mayor council form, the mayor is not permitted to vote. It's basically chairs the meeting. So you might have a different format there, but most bodies are that size. There are, however, many managers that work individually, in just unique cities that have many times more than just 5 to 7 members. They may have up in the 20s, and those are very large cities. I'm thinking of Jacksonville, Duval County, for example, and some places like that may have very, larger councils because they're larger cities.
Do you feel it's more successful or less successful with a larger or smaller council? Where do you think the advantages or the disadvantages are? And at large members as well, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, I would just add that I think Chelsea demonstrated very well by the facts. If you're a mid-range community of above 5,000 up into the 250,000 level, that the facts kind of speak for themselves in the sense that those are the ideal areas that consist of both rural communities and suburban. But particularly around metropolitan areas, there are very large concentric circles typically of council manager cities around most metropolitan areas. And many, I live in Gainesville, Florida, for example, which is a university, but it's surrounded by a rural area, and it has council manager form and has many years have that form of government. So I think that's the range of cities that it's very appropriate for. And again, I think it is the fastest growing form of government in the United States for local government.
No, what I meant, the size of the council. How many council members?
I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
I'm sorry. No, it's my fault.
I'm sorry. I just think you need enough that you can get a variety of representation of your community. And I think the idea of 7 to 9 in that area, from 5 to 9, is probably the common. And that's probably the most suitable. Most cities are either at large or they have zones or wards. Depends upon the city and what your state laws require. But typically, the representation probably requires that amount. And that's typically small groups. Small group dynamics works well in that range of people that have to work together to solve problems. Chelsea, any other comment?
No, I thank you. I've seen a wide variety, but historically what I've seen and what I've heard is most cities have probably 5 to 9. I mean, we have 8 here at the city of Douglasville. I have seen, 13 in those larger cities or so, but yes, around no more than 9.
And I would add counties tend to have fewer. They tend to have 3 to 5. Even though they're larger scale geography, they tend to have fewer members.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joe. Arthur, do you have a question?
Yeah. First, I wanted to build on my colleague's question, which was, I don't know if y'all are aware, but we have 14 members of our council. So we each represent about 18,500, 19,000 people. Have y'all dealt with any counties or parishes in the transition phase where they go from a president or mayor to a council/manager form or commission/manager form?
Yes, we're familiar with the transition. It happens many times. Unless you're a new city enacting a brand new charter, most of the cities have gone through some type of transition. So that's very common. I've worked in transitions. I was the first city administrator in Green River, Wyoming, for example, and they'd had a long history of, it was a mining town, large corporations making soda ash, and they had a model in the private sector around them of corporate management, and they wanted that for the city. So I was the transitional first administrator. And anyway, that transition goes on. It's nothing that is cannot be overcome. It's very common. Everybody's the first somewhere.
All right. Thank you for the answer. General?
I have nothing else. I'm sorry.
Carl?
No, thank you. That's an excellent presentation. The fact that you included the bibliography leads me to conclude that much of what you have in there is not simply assertions, that it's underpinned by research, and that's helpful, at least for me. In your research findings, you say that the council manager cities have a stronger budgetary solvency. Did you all come across any, or do you have any data that suggests why you have that there?
Mainly, and I can send it over to you, kind of going back to Randy's point of hiring those professional managers. And so, for example, we have a CFO here who is certified, she's a CPA. And so just going back to hiring professional managers, in that council manager form of government, it's seen, since there are professional managers, that they have the knowledge and the expertise and the experience to basically push towards, those different type of revenue and expenditure values, to make sure that we're manipulating, or not necessarily manipulating, but making sure that our budget and how we are, spending those different types of funds are in a way that is the best for the city to, carry out a higher credit score or a bond rating. So it just goes back to having that professional manager.
And if I could add, I think I would call it, in terms of best practices, managers that do this for a living and are professional managers, they do have that code of ethics that they follow, but they also understand what the best practices are. So, for example, I don't know what kind of budget you use, but there are different kinds of budgeting. And if I talked to you and I was your manager, I might hear in our conversations that it might be better to use different types of budgets, zero-based budgeting, program budgets, performance budgets, things of that nature. And a lot of places that struggle without professional management, you may just be having a generic budget talk. And so you're looking at just trying to get the budget in a format that you might like to review line items or something. A manager is more likely to have a set of best practices, such as discussing and having an actual strategic plan, having budget policies, and have you approve policies that help you base the budget on, ideas about capital improvements programs that are actually followed. So you have, maybe a 5-year outlet or longer. Some cities implement 2-year budgeting, so your current budget and your estimated budget for the following year. It's just basically a manager that's professional and has experience would be seeking solutions from best practices that can help their individual jurisdiction. And every jurisdiction is unique, so there's actually a lot of schedules for fire departments, for example. How you schedule people for fire departments. There's different ways you do that, and a manager would help make that decision with the fire chief on what's the best, most efficient way to schedule firefighters. That's the same way with solid waste routes, same way with how you operate sewer plants and whether you need tertiary, primary sewer treatment. Those are all things, and they have best practices associated with them. That's what you're really paying for, is to get that knowledge to help you go the next level up in service, and also candidly to help you be better representatives. My principal goal as a manager was always to make sure that my elected representatives, I was making them more effective at doing that. So that's where you do things like citizen engagement and public hearings and community surveys, things of that nature. So there's really a council manager form of government produces more and better well-run cities. And that's what that bibliography will show you. IBM did a study that showed there was 10% less costs of running a government if it was council manager versus mayor. And by the way, I don't want to criticize mayors. There are great mayors, and if you're fortunate to have them for a period of time, but there are a lot more professional managers that can continue to serve you over the years than the number of really qualified, outstanding mayors that might be produced by your community. So it's just like you can go out and buy what you need in terms of the manager with the skill levels that they have and that you need.
Continuing to follow on, I think the operative word that you've used, and I think most people would agree, is professional versus political process. Do you have sort of a template to what a governmental body like us is, a parish or county, not a city, of what constitutes a professional manager in terms of education, experience, and so forth? I assume a degree in public administration would be kind of a baseline, but do you have sort of something that you could share with us that's sort of a template, if you will?
Yes, we can send you a job description, qualifications that they look for, but you're absolutely correct. Most managers, especially those in ICMA, do have a MPA or some type of undergrad degree. We have a credential manager designation as well for managers that are in the profession, so we can definitely send you that information over.
I think that would
We're
help
not
us.
just about hiring qualified people. We're about helping the people that you hire become more qualified. So she just mentioned credentialing. If I was hired that you and I both knew that my weakness was finance, I can go through a credentialing process and bone up on my financial skills with the help and the best practices. I can do that. That's what ICMA does. So we also help advertise and recruit. I don't mean that we'll do that for you. I mean that you prepare an ad and we will make sure that gets around to managers across the country. So that's the kind of thing we do.
Again, thank you for that presentation. It's very well done. You articulated it very well. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sims, you had a question?
How are you? How do you mechanically execute and get down to what the manager is actually going to do on behalf of the council? How do they arrive to that agreement and that consensus that drives the priorities that you're going to execute on their behalf? Is it just by vote? Is it by, can you describe how that kind of works and how they kind of get down to what the manager is going to execute on their behalf?
Yes, I'll start toss over to Randy. There's no correct answer. There's a wide variety of how you get your roadmap and get to, the end goal or, achieve a lot of things. So a lot of cities, their professional manager will have strategic planning sessions. So what that looks like is you have an overview of what you've done over the last year or a couple of years. You look at the voices in your community. So, the different plans that you all have and, those public hearings and focus groups that you've had with those individuals. You take a deep dive into the budget. We bring in an economist. So, we look at the budget. We also look like what, future forecasts as relates to finances, not only in our community, but overall in the state and in the U.S., what that looks like prior to making those decisions. And then, of course, we listen to the priorities that you all have heard from your voters. And, at the city of Douglasville, we sit down and we just have a planning session and a 2-day powwow, and we kind of, we have our marching orders. From there, we have a person who's basically a facilitator taking those notes. And at the end of the day, they're like, this is what we've heard is deemed priority for the next year, for the next couple of years. And we look at the comprehensive plans from there, and then you get your marching orders. Those goals and objectives that we used, or that, cities and counties use from having those planning sessions, those serve as the framework for what that administrator or what that manager will be doing for the next year or for the next couple of years. And then every year, of course, managers, they have evaluations on their successes. Of course, sometimes you have to start over and pivot, but that's pretty much just a wide variety of ways that, a manager will get their, orders from the elected officials. But of course, we always want to look at, the financials, what we've done in the past, forecasts and different things. You want to look at best practices. We pull in best practices from all over. So from whether it is public works, whether it's parks and recreation, whether it's, human resources, they start looking at best practices and trends as well of what's going on, throughout the nation and throughout that state and in that county. So it's a whole huge ecosystem. And, Randy, you may want to have a couple more things to add, but there's no right or wrong way, but that is just kind of like one of the ways that I've seen, one of the more common ways that we've seen as it relates to, professional managers and, how they handle the day-to-day and get their, marching orders from the start.
Yeah, I would agree with what Chelsea just said. I think a professional manager is focusing a lot of their attention on you as a governing body with those things like strategic planning, goal setting sessions, workshops. Every meeting doesn't have to be a decision. Many jurisdictions have workshops where they talk about an issue and get data out and get a more mutual understanding before they go to a vote. So you can have community meetings. Managers can, with the blessing of the council, can, for example, convene the community conversations where you just meet with citizens and talk about, what are the needs of the city? What's the future of the city? What are the issues we need to be covering? That information goes to you. And again, many elected officials in most places are part-time. You have your own lives. You have your own responsibilities. The manager's kind of focused on running the city and helping you govern it. So it's kind of like a governance team. The other thing I would point out is it's not only upfront getting to understand what you want to accomplish, it's also accountability. You might have things like a policy calendar saying we're going to do these things in the first part of the year. We'll be getting to these other issues around midsummer and in the fall. And there's a cycle. It goes along with the budget, but it's not about budget, it's about policies. The same way you build a road, you got to buy the land and the right of way first. And then you build a road. It's planning how you're going to create the community. We didn't mention visioning, but again, a manager would help you kind of envision, how do you want the parish to look? How do you want it to feel for residents? Those kinds of things. And then finally, I would say just for accountability, there's probably a list. I've always had a list that I share with councils. This is the status of where these projects are. And these are behind, or you might use red, yellow, green lights, like a traffic signal, or else you just say, we're behind on this. These 5 are going great. This one, we're ahead of schedule. This one, we found the cost is going to be immense. Or, by the way, this one, the federal government cut out all the funding last Tuesday, and we have no money to do this project that we've been needing for our community. So how are we going to, adapt to that change in the environment in order to accomplish the vision we have? But they're focused on helping you have that discussion.
I have a couple more things.
Sure,
okay.
go ahead.
And just kind of in addition to, so how do you avoid, we're talking about you guys are independent, you're just solely focused on execution of mission, not politics, but how do you avoid being caught in the midst of politics amongst the council members that may have different visions or there's gross disagreement, and kind of also balancing that if there are a high number of council members with very diverse opinions and strong ones about what to prioritize, what to do. How is all that resolved that doesn't get in the way of you kind of being caught in the crossfire of other people's politics? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand. Let me take a shot at that. One thing, the way you would structure a manager working with the board, with your governing body, maybe, for example, when you look at an issue, they would give you a report at your council meeting, and I don't know what your council reports look like, but it would have the standard background of the issue, discussion of facts about the issue. But for example, I might give you alternatives. I'm not likely to give you, you must do this, the manager says. The manager says these are 3 alternatives that we could consider. I'm recommending alternative 2 because it appears to be the most cost efficient, fastest track. But the issue is any one of these 3 alternatives might be something the board as a group want to discuss and consider. And that removes a little bit of the, dictatorial, the fear that somebody's dictating what they're going to, try to get the board to do. And the other issue is I can testify. I worked in every jurisdiction I've worked in. No one would have any idea what my politics were. They might know what my values were, but the idea of I don't attend political events. I don't sign, you want to run for office. I won't sign those cards, but I won't sign them for anyone. I don't give political contributions. And by the way, that's based on our code of ethics. It's called Tenet 7. So any professional manager knows that's best practice ethically not to do those things. So if the board invited me to attend something, I would only go if it was in my positional authority, like I needed to greet the governor because he's coming in town with the mayor. but I'm not going to appear at the governor's fundraising event. You follow me? Nor any of yours.
Good.
Because I work for all of you. And I'll be working for the people that get elected.
And the last part is, in y'all's experience with manager run systems and funding, do you guys work in systems where a lot of the funding is dedicated and run by a lot of boards that are separately appointed by council and then also kind of managed by, I guess, externally by the established manager? How is your funding handled? Is it voted on in general within the council and then executed through the manager, or are there a lot of dedicated funds with sub boards that have their own autonomy?
Well, I know for us, and well, if you look at most cities and counties, their charter will outline how their budget is done. So for most cities and counties in Georgia, a lot of the authorities or boards, they don't hold that much money or that much part of the budget. So most development authorities, downtown development authorities, urban redevelopment authorities that are, state statutes for them to be created, they hold some of the funds, but our city charter outlines that our mayor and council, they have that pot of funds, and it comes from property taxes. So we have property taxes in the state of Georgia. And so about 60% of our funds come from the residents. So therefore, in return, our mayor and council, since they're elected by those individuals, they have the general authority of the budget that the professional manager and CFO bring forth that's balanced every year. So we don't have too many different pots.
Yeah, I've worked in all different forms. I've worked in 3 states, but most states, the bulk of the financing is through the governing, the council or commission, but you can have separate authorities that do special functions, airport authorities, sewer authorities, things that may be in certain cases have their own separate funding. But most of the funding, it's more often a group is in charge of expenditures and trying to come up with things to spend money on. They come to the council for money. And then there's also, all of us have worked for numerous advisory boards of all kinds, and those boards also are usually given some authority, but not all authority over given areas. But again, I would point out what Chelsea said is one of the things managers do is read documents. So it's just like an attorney, and the city charter says how the city's was approved to be run, and you try to follow that first, like the Constitution. So that's part of it. You would follow if a charter for a advisory board was created, or a document, bylaws, whatever you want to call it. We would make sure that the bylaws are implemented and followed. We're very process oriented, not only bureaucratic by that. I mean, we're process oriented, and you can't take authority you weren't given by some appropriate person. So that's one of the things that we tend to follow. That's why it's more accountable. And we also, there's a big issue around the country with things like fraud and things like that. So we have to constantly recognize that we're running an organization that it is possible for people to do things that are inappropriate or illegal. And we're the people that have to make sure we have systems to keep that checked, the checks and balances. So I would answer your question that way. Ideally, the council that's elected by the people ought to have the ultimate control. But you do have different functions that may be, those individuals may be given their own funding source. By the way, it's even worse in county government. As you may know, you can have multiple ways, even in the same county, of how districts are funded. So sometimes a city within that, or a parish within the county kind of structure, you may end up with those conflicts where the government above you is divided up into different funding sections, and you have to try to recognize who has the money to accomplish your goal.
This will be my last observation / question. How effective do you think a manager can be in a parish, let's say like ours, where 99% of the funding is dedicated?
Just by dedicated, you mean that it's assigned to certain functions?
Yeah, like I guess the best way to describe it, you'd have basically you have a district for almost everything known to man, and the funds can only be spent within that district, and they all have their own boards. Some have zero oversight by the council, some have flow through. Maybe Joe or one of the councilmen who sit here can describe it better than me. But I'm just curious, if we're hiring a professional, the council's considered hiring a professional to run parish government, how effective can you be when basically you have no decision to allocate funds or move funds based upon changing needs?
Yeah, I think I would answer that too, is that when you're hiring someone, you need to look at what skills you're looking for. It would sound to me like if you had a desire to have more uniformity or a common outcome of all these different groups, that the manager you're looking for, you would make sure that they have interpersonal skills so they can deal with these people, help facilitate or convene meetings to get everybody on a common track. You can do that through documents like strategic planning and saying who's doing this goal, who's doing this objective, and those might be different committees, but it's that idea of trying to harness and bring together people towards a common purpose. That's kind of leadership in general. And if it's separated, like you say, that would be one of the goals, and you'd want to hire somebody who can do that. If you hired somebody that didn't want that, and by the way, in an interview, that's where you need, when you get to that point, you need to be honest with the manager that's coming into your community, or if you use an executive recruiter, that the summary of what you're looking for is actually, very truthful. Because if that was a concern to you, the manager would want to know that that's a concern. If it's all right with you, then that manager will know, well, I'm not supposed to, I'm just trying to help bring these people together to accomplish something. I'm not here to try to change the format of the local government. But that's part of communication, and a manager is going to do the same thing with all of those people you just mentioned. If he's hired, he or she is hired, they're going to try to bring people together to accomplish the goal of the governing body.
Yeah. And I'll add a manager that's coming in, they've probably done just as much research about your community as you've done on them. So they're coming in with, they're probably going to ask you, hey, I see that 99% of your funds are dedicated. This is my whole thought process and my strategic, thoughts on how we can make this work in your community. So that's the whole thing with having that manager there, is they have that experience. They have the individuals they can call on to say, to get, that strategic plan underway. And then they'll talk to you all about what is most important to you at this moment to get, these things done.
And you will have some ability to recruit from as far away as you want or as locally. Yeah. So it's the idea that you pick the person that fits the lifestyle of your community, where it's at right now. When I say lifestyle, there's a life cycle in a community. But if you're building, you need a manager that understands how to build communities. If you're in a retraction, you've lost industries, there are managers that are skilled at that, turnaround communities. And they'll tell you their stories in the last place they went where they turned it around. But that's the kind of, when you start dealing with actually hiring somebody, that's the thing, we could assist you in that as well, but outlining what these managers have, these particular skills. And they've also, if you check their references, the people that from those places will say, this person really helped turn this around, or this person prepared us for growth, or this person came in and solved a terrible accounting fiasco that we had. Yeah. And that's what we do. But you also hire someone to accomplish what you want done.
Great, thank you. Great questions. Ms. Hayes, did you have one?
Yes, I have more of a statement than a question. I just want to clarify some things for this committee, as well as the council and the audience and the viewing public, just so that you know the current state of how parish government runs, because I think there have been a lot of things here that have been, I don't want to say insinuated, but implied, that are not being handled the right way. I just want to make sure everyone understands our charter already has a section on every department in parish government. It also states the requirements of the CAO and the educational requirements and the experiential requirements. All of that is already stated. Also, the charter does also require that after the parish president appoints the CAO and every director, they must be confirmed by the council. So the council has the opportunity to then say, no, that's not someone that we feel comfortable with, or we do not think that person has the educational requirements, or please provide us with information, which is what is currently done. Every time a director is appointed by the parish president and it is submitted to the council for confirmation, those directors we provide all of the directors' resumes and experience to the council prior to the vote so that they have all of the information they need, whether to vote yes or vote no. I also wanted to mention that all of our current directors are professionals. They all have the correct educational requirements. Our finance director is a CPA. So I just don't want, because we're talking about the possibility that in this form of government that a mayor or parish president, because we're not a county, we are a parish in Louisiana, just because the parish president could possibly appoint someone who's not qualified for a position. We do have a system of checks and balances at this parish government to where the council could then make sure that that did not happen. They do have that ability. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone knew that this is not, we do not have a parish right now where we have a bunch of directors running the place that are not qualified. We do have all qualified directors in every position. I also wanted to let you know that we do have budgetary policies and financial policies. I know that the speakers today talked about how we should get someone who would start that. I think that they're correct. We should have that, and we do. I just want to make sure that everyone who's viewing this meeting realizes that we do already have that. We also already have a 5-year capital plan. Also, in the state of Louisiana, we have ethics laws that we have to adhere to, and every parish employee has to take ethics training every year. So I did want to let everyone know that. We also provide monthly, they mentioned that we should, a parish manager would provide reports to the council on the status of projects. We do that every month. Every month, every council member receives a monthly project status report. It goes not only to the council administrator of every project, but it goes to every single council member for just their district. And I guess I just wanted to kind of summarize a little bit that the difference between what we have now, right now we have a president-council form of government, which is a form of government that has a system of checks and balances in place. A parish manager form of government, that leaves all the control with the council. The council would appoint the parish manager, and the parish manager would answer only to the council. So I'm not saying that's right or wrong. That's for the people to decide. That's for this committee to decide what they want to do, what they want to submit to the council, and what the council wants to submit to the public of St. Tammany for them to vote for. I just want to make sure that it's clear that is the true difference between these two things. The difference is whether you want the power divided or do you want it all in one place. That's the difference. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear. And I do appreciate the speakers today, but I just think that maybe they're from another state that I don't know what state they're from, but in Louisiana, we do have ethics laws. Those are things that we have to adhere to, and all of our parish employees have to take ethics training every year.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Any other questions, comments?
I have one, but staff.
Huh?
You're on.
Thank you. I just want to do a couple points of clarification. I think there are some issues that we have talked about in the past. For example, administration can appoint an acting director for an indeterminate period of time without council confirmation. And I think this is something the board needs to look at and continue to discuss. I have to correct, the council does get a monthly report on contracts, but not projects. So there is some needed clarification about timelines for reports requested and what that really means, because there is some rub sometimes when we get to those, getting those in a timely manner or exactly how we ask for them. And then there was one other thing I wanted to say, and I can't think of it now. And I have to agree, obviously, our directors are highly qualified. As being a former director, I would never think anything else. I think we do have a lot of positives and we do have a lot of things in place. But I think this is just for us to think about what other people do and get ideas, and then y'all can go from there.
Great, thank you. Any other comments or
Yeah,
questions?
I had
Arthur,
some.
did you raise your hand? Okay.
First of all, and I do appreciate the comments from my colleagues. I do think that we're getting off track here because right now we're here to learn, not to actually analyze what, and we have two real resources right here on Zoom for us to ask questions for. Not to like kind of critique, this is not a critique of our current system. This is just a review of all the different trends and things like that. For our guests, one of the things I wanted to ask y'all is if you could, number one, share, y'all mentioned earlier on in your presentation that this has been analyzed professionally, and the council manager form seems to be the most efficient and innovative. And if you could just comment about like what school or whoever did that analysis or that research for you. And then also if you could just give us some examples of how innovation seems more, I guess the term would be readily adopted in that form of government.
So just to speak to the school that handle, there have been several schools that ICMA works alongside for this. I know one of the schools in particular was University of Georgia, which is, they have a Institute of Government, so it's the Carl Vinson Institute of Government. So they assisted with some of these findings and just kind of doing a simple comparison of the council manager and mayor council form of government. And then I think the second part of your question, I'm sorry, the audio was being a little low, so I didn't hear that part.
Chelsea, I think he was asking, if you look at the bibliography, a lot of the facts included, those documents are more extensive than what she just ran over in a PowerPoint. University of North Carolina, there's a researcher there who's known as a public administration professional who has attended other meetings like this in Louisiana, talking about the less white-collar crime, less fraud in council manager forms of government. And by the way, those cities all have audits and things like that, but they don't have somebody that's really looking out to make sure there's not fraud. And so anyway, most of those documents, the IBM study is available. ICMA can provide you some of this. But I think if you look at the bibliography at the end of the PowerPoint and explore those documents, you will see that that's the general view is it is the fastest growing and has an extremely high rating for ethical government and efficiency.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elton. Thank you. I think I have another question from a citizen here, so hold on 1 minute. Ms. Stevens, you want to come up?
Thank you very much. I just was hoping to clarify what you had mentioned earlier, that this form of government has been most effective in municipalities that range from 50,000 up to 250,000 in population. Is that correct? Isn't that what you said?
That was that's where the majority of the largest number of cities were practicing council manager form of government in that area.
Okay, and we topped that already and are rising beyond that, just as a point of clarification. And also, checks and balances would be my concern. I looked up the reference from your bibliography regarding the lessening of fraud, and it's just a model that was run, not case studies. So I think that further investigation would probably be warranted if the body was looking into this seriously as a method to tamp down fraud and corruption, if such a thing does exist or is a concern. So personally, I would encourage checks and balances, the system that we have, because as a resident, I haven't heard anybody suggest that it's not working. So Thank you so much. Thank you for your presentation, too. It really is very enlightening.
Thank you.
Just for the record, I'd ask you to check with Professor Kim Nelson of the University of North Carolina for a detailed study of crime and local government and forms of government and its impact on white-collar crime. But that's Dr. Kim Nelson, University of North Carolina.
Great, thank you. Yeah, we appreciate that. We'll follow up. Mr. Did you want to speak or did you want? Yes, Mr. Corbin, Councilman Corbin.
I don't know if we have to announce our names. Jeff Corbin,
What's your
310 Dove
address?
Drive in Slidell. The only question I had, I really appreciate your presentation. In looking at your references in the bibliography, some of those seem quite dated. And so I was interested if you had something, some more updated. In particular, the area of interest, my particular interest has to do with data on actual performance of a council manager versus a mayor council in terms of outcomes, efficiency, productivity, and customer focus relative to serving the needs of the constituents. I recognize the one reference from Marlowe, but that was, I think, 2003 is when that was given. The number of transitions that you seem to imply have been going on in this area. There may be opportunities to have more information that shows direct comparisons of some of those outcomes of one form of government versus another. And I did see the notional data that general reduction in cost and things of that sort, but some more specific information might be useful.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Mr. Corbin. All right, any other questions or comments? Oh, I'm sorry. I think he was actually asking you a question on availability of additional information.
The listing, the information there is current information. There are studies that are done occasionally. I would tell you local government, just like local civics, is not something that's taught, nor researched much. I think the thing we would point out is the adoption rate of council manager form of government, and candidly, the lack of it in Louisiana compared to the other 49 states is one of the documented facts of what forms of government are growing, and the information on the different sized communities is factual data, and that can be gathered from the National League of Cities, which you may be a member of, or the National Association of Counties, but they keep those records. Those are not necessarily kept by us.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I think, Ms. Stevens, I think what they're saying is that a certain percentage, it was 74% of areas with 100 to 250, 74% of them were council manager. So if you move up the ladder, the next one, which would be us, it's about 50%, 50-50. So 50 are one side and 50 are the other. Okay.
Mr. Davis,
I'm sorry.
I had something real quick. I don't know if the microphones work.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to say that I think we have an excellent staff of professionals at St. Tammany Parish government that do a fantastic job, from our CAO to all of our directors. But what I like about this form of government is it's more collaborative, and it seems to give the people, our constituents who communicate with their council members on a regular basis, more input into what goes on into the day-to-day operations of government. That was
Good.
it.
Thank you. Anything else on this topic? We really appreciate your time. I know it's been very helpful. And if there's anything else we need, we'll be in touch, but we are grateful. Thank you both. Thank you.
Thank you all. If you need anything from us, ICMA continues to be, an arm for cities, counties, parishes. So
Great.
anything you all may need, please reach out and we can get that information over to you all.
Great. Thank you so much. Y'all have a great.
We will support any professional administrator can belong to ICMA. So, for example, if the president or whoever is your central administrator, if they're not a member of ICMA, we welcome their joining.
Yeah. Great.
Have access to resources.
Yeah. Thank you so much. We're grateful.
Thank you.
Have a good afternoon.
You too.
All right. We're going to move along now. Let's see. Item A, discussion of Article 6, initiative and referendum. I'd like for you to look at that. One of the things I was curious about and would be open for discussion is the issue of petitioning referendum by citizens. This actually says you have 60 days and 20% of the registered voters. I'm curious to know why 20%? Like the last election, we had 10% of the voters. Why wouldn't it be some amount lower than 20% of registered?
Ashley, it's your computer.
I was echoing. Any thoughts? You have 30 days to form a petition. You have 60 days. The person or circulating a petition, sign the petition within 60 days. So you have to get 20% of 100. Go ahead.
So are you, if I understand you correctly, is it the math problem? Is it you'd have to get more signatures of a higher percentage of voters than actually voted in the election?
Right. I mean, they're not voting. So why would you need 20% of some huge number, which you're not going to get? I mean, I don't even know why we'd have this section in here. I mean, you're not going to get it. If the public said we would like a referendum, it's impossible for them to do this. So wouldn't it make more sense to align it with the last election or an average of the elections than 20% of how many registered voters you have?
And forgive the dialogue, but like in my situation, if let's say somebody wanted to recall me, all right, in my district, I only get 5 to 10% of the people who actually voted in both elections I was in. You'd have to get more voters. You'd have to get more signatures than people actually who showed up to the polls, right?
Under this existing, I wasn't really thinking about that so much as I was saying about if there was a referendum that the public wanted to put on the ballot. I'm trying to think of something to make up, but I think you understand what I'm saying. There's no means to do it. I mean,
Extra federal holidays or something like that.
well, you're going to get, how many voters are there? Isn't there 100 and, does anybody know? 100 and some thousand?
130, something, I don't.
Yeah, so you'd have to get 20% of those, and if I'm reading it right, you have to do that within 60 days. I just think that, I don't know why it's even in here, because you're never going to get that. Go ahead.
And Mr. Shane next.
The only experience I have with this one is CCST, the former coroner wants to remove inflation for a recall. That's a different criteria.
This is Mike. Hold on.
Hold on one second. Try it again, Carl.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Two of them here later. Sorry. And it's a different criteria for a recall, but it was 20% of the voters in 2 months. It is impossible.
I know.
The process is just impossible because you got to, physically you got to get everybody's signature, you got to set up stations. And even though everybody knew it should happen, couldn't make the threshold.
Right.
So I think your point is well taken. If you really want to have it where it's a referendum or like a proposition in California, you got to make it so that it's at least you can reach the goal if you're organized and you have enough time. So maybe reduce the threshold and increase the time limit. I don't know.
Yeah, you can't make this work. So my question is, I read it and been reading it, would we not want to make it to the electorate in past elections or some, I mean, if we're only getting 10% or 12% of the voters to vote, Can legal, you understand what I'm saying? Could you look at that for us for a possible change? I mean, I don't know how the other committee members feel, but I think the voters should have a right to be able to do referendums, whatever they may be, and the number should not be impossible for them to reach.
Sure, and I just want to make sure that you're aware that it's 10% of total registered voters for a parish-wide proposition and 20% for a proposition that it is less than parish-wide. So those are the numbers we're working with now in Section 601. But I will research whether that's something that we can change to make it.
I would think since it's in here, I think it would make me think that we could change it unless there's a state law and this follows some state law.
Yeah,
That's what I'm
Mary
asking.
said there's 190,000 registered voters in St. Tammany Parish.
I thought that's what it was. So you have to get 20% of those in 60 days. All right. I mean, there's no way to do that.
Mr. Shane.
I'm sorry, Mr. Shane.
And then Ms. LeBlanc.
You mentioned my point. I don't know the answer, but there could be some state law considerations
Yeah.
that are in the.
Yeah. So she'll research that. But if there isn't, I'd really like all of us to think about that.
Good points.
Yeah. Ms. LeBlanc?
Oh, no.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got the seating chart messed up again. My
No,
fault.
we're good on this side. We just have trouble on that side.
On this side?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, Emily, if you would please review that and let us, and put it on with your items. Thank you. Amending or repealing the charter. Okay.
Oh, Glenn. Mr.
Glenn on online.
Can you hear us, Glenn?
We're still on initiative and referendum. We have somebody that's online. Glenn. Can we hear him? No, huh?
Do you have your voice?
Did you have a question on what we're talking about? Okay. I may move on because well, Glenn, I could see you. You're sideways, but we'll get back to you. Let's go ahead on. We'll come back to it for Glenn once she gets it connected. Just interrupt me when you get it. Item 7, amending or repealing the charter. Please review amending 701, amending or repealing the charter. Same kind of an issue. If the public wants to amend or repeal the charter, same timelines, petition signed less than 20%. So you need almost 40,000 voters to repeal anything. Just think about that. I mean, it's just not doable. So I don't know why we even have it in here, truthfully, if we don't change it. So Emily, we're going to ask again on that section, I believe, if that's okay with the committee. Let's go ahead to general provisions, Article 8, which is 8.1. Legal process against shall be served upon the president in his absence. I don't see, did anybody see an issue there? I mean, that's typical. Code of ethics. Parish government shall be subject to provisions of the state code of ethics, as Ms. Hayes was talking about. All of us, even all of us on here, have to do that. As volunteers, we have to do that every year. So, unless there's nothing. 8.3, bonding of officers. Shall give bonding amount. It's prescribed by the council, and they're paid by the parish. 804, oaths of office. Yes. It's 8.02. Ms. Stevens, go ahead.
I would suggest that, and I mentioned this at a prior meeting, that there be a censure mechanism for anyone who violates, who has taken that oath and who chooses not to follow it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think they were going to do some review, and we're not ready to present reviews yet, but
Okay.
they were going to review that.
Okay.
Because
good.
and we talked about Congress. Remember, Congress does
We
the
did.
same thing.
Yes,
So-
we did.
So they were going to review that,
Okay.
and then we'll see what the committee wants to do.
Okay, good. Thank you.
you. Thank you so much. Okay, 8-04, oaths of office. Any issues?
Question.
Yes, sir.
On the oath of office, it says specifically the parish government. My question is, outside of parish government, St. Tammany Parish, all the others, do they take the same oath? So if we put something in here, does it bond everybody that's in parish government and beyond parish government, St. Tammany Parish?
To the best of my knowledge, it is the same.
I mean, this is the oath that the state has adopted, that we just codified in our charter. So yes, they all take the same oath of office, but we can only regulate parish government. We can't require that, say, the sheriff take the same oath of office, but the state can and does.
Okay.
So that answer your question? I think, yes, it's
It does, but it doesn't scratch my itch.
okay. Well, you think about it and let us
It
know.
seems to me that if you write something in the charter for St. Tammany Parish, the average person out there thinks that this is the parish constitution, right? So it applies to everybody that's elected, works for somebody that's elected. But in fact, it does not.
Well, I don't want to be lengthy, but this is the same kind of thing that I did when I got on a board or commission. You swear it's the same one. So I think it's the one that we all use parish wide. We can verify that though. Do we have? I'm going to go back. Do we have Glenn? So we're going to go back to
6.
yeah, amending and repealing. Yeah,
Can you hear us, Glenn?
referendums.
I can hear you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Yeah, no, just my quick comment was going to be if the HRC committee can recommend a quantity, like a revised quantity versus 20%, I was going to, as a resident, I was going to recommend, a number in the hundreds, for example, 250 or 500, unless state law has a must-have quantity for that. But that's all I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah. Well, great. We appreciate it. So what you're saying is you think that it should be a different number than the 20%.
Right. I'm saying it shouldn't be 20%. I think something reasonable would be a number in the hundreds that would show there's substantial interest among the public. And I would argue that a number in the hundreds, that should substantiate merit that it's being on the ballot.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we appreciate your comments and thoughts. Thank you so much. Okay, oath of office, advisory boards and commissions. The council by resolution, the president may appoint advisory boards and commissions It shall not have administrative legislative authority. Member advisory board shall have no compensation for service. Do all the boards today not have compensation? I thought some get, I'm sorry.
Yes, some do. The Planning and Zoning Commission both get, I think it's like a $50 per diem.
Yeah.
The Board of Adjustments as well. Although I'm not sure that those would be advisory commissions. I believe those would be administrative boards and commissions that we'll get to in section 806.
Okay.
Advisory boards and commissions don't have any authority to,
That's
spend
the
any
difference.
taxpayer funds or
Okay.
make any rules or regulations like this body. It's
Like us.
advisory only. Exactly.
Right, like
But
us.
I'm not aware of any advisory only boards that receive compensation or per diem.
Right. Okay, 701, that's a good point. I didn't, when I read the beginning, I should have. Amending or repealing the charter. What is that? No, I'm yeah, how did I get here? Yeah. Now 807, no, 806, administrative boards and commissions.
Before we get there,
Hmm?
just had a quick question on
Sure.
805. Maybe I just don't understand it, but it says on here, this section shall not apply to a board or commission created by an ordinance or in accordance with the general state law. And prior to it, he was talking about, having public notice. Just curious, what board or commission would that fall suit to? Because it just seemed weird.
Let me check it.
Okay.
On the advisory boards,
Correct.
section
805.
E.
E.
It shall be open to the public accordance, it shall not apply to boards or commissions created by ordinance.
So you can see, if
okay.
you go back to 805A,
Yeah.
it says advisory boards and commissions are those that are created by the council by resolution. So
Yeah.
as opposed to an ordinance that has, the weight of law behind it, these advisory boards and commissions, such as this one, were created by resolution, which is just the will of the council to create different boards and commissions to advise the parish for different purposes. And so while they still have to comply to open meetings law in accordance with state law, there are other provisions such as not receiving compensation that apply for these advisory boards created by resolution as opposed to administrative boards created by ordinance.
Right.
If that helps.
It does in explaining that, but the fact that it is in that same section, it just lends to an understanding that it's not obligated to public. Some of the same things that's there. I know that they have, in addition to, some different stipulations. I was just saying for clarity, it just seems like maybe the wording or of sort, maybe it can be worded a little bit differently. Because it still has to uphold to the public, the open public meeting, but not necessarily to everything that's stated in there. So maybe just the rewording of E, just for clarity.
May I comment on that too, that particular point?
You finished doing this?
Yes, yeah.
Go ahead.
Yes. Uh-huh.
To that point, and I have found that it has come up in several different sections where boards and commissions are specifically referenced, but it's not clarified which ones are applicable and which ones are not. And we all know what the boards and commissions are, and we have already heard from Emily today that this body is regulating the boards and commissions of the parish government. In other words, not special districts or outside agencies. So it might behoove, or tell me if it would not help clarify all of these documents to list out which entities these issues apply to and which ones they do not, or specifically do not. Does that make sense?
I understand your comment, but I don't
Okay.
know. So you're suggesting that under this, because they're created by ordinance, that we would list them in E?
Which ones? Well, not only in this place, but there are several other places where boards and commissions are discussed. Well, like when we go down further and we talk about merge, consolidate, abolish, reorganize, that sort of thing, it really is important to know which entities fall under that purview and which do not, specifically. Because some entities, like special districts, are covered by state law. They're not covered by parish government, and they're not covered by the council. So those should be indicated as such, so that everyone's clear, everyone who reads it is clear, everyone on the council is clear, everyone in the public is clear which entities are governed by the parish government and this document, and which are beyond the purview of this document. Thank you.
Questions?
Ms. Tanner?
My only concern with that, if you put this in the charter, then what happens if the council decides to create another board? It's not in the charter. Does that mean it has to go to another vote of the people?
There's another section that allows you to create and dissolve anything by ordinance that you have created. So you can continue to create.
But if we put it in this document,
Yeah, I'm trying to understand her comment. I think.
I mean, we could just have a list. Couldn't we not have a list without putting it in the document itself?
I don't know that you want to list all of the boards and commissions.
Well, I agree.
Yeah.
But I just don't think that a list should go in the charter, because if it's abolished, if it's abolished, or if another one is added, then we have a charter where that is outdated.
I agree with you. I think the comment was for clarification and reference from the public perception of what's created and what's been created and what has authority and what is more advisory. I assume that's kind of where you were headed. But the list in this section, it would be things like fire districts, mosquito control, those kinds of districts that are created that have boards over them. By ordinance they have created. Emily, I have to yield. Was the library created by the state or by the parish?
So a lot of these are not black and white answers. Some of these are created by the state or have special state legislation, but are actually created by the parish. In some instances, the parish appoints members to these boards and commissions, but they're not parish created entities. So it's not black and white for a lot of these things. So like mosquito abatement, for instance, it was created by ordinance by the parish. However, it does have special state legislation that in some respects ties the hands of parish government to act unilaterally. Something like the library, it is created by the parish by ordinance. However, again, there's some special state legislation regarding to the use of library funds that parish government acting alone could not change without an act of the legislature. So a lot of these things are in a gray area. Some boards are easy, like fire districts and rec districts. Those are created by ordinance by the parish under the authority of the state.
Yeah, because the state gives them the authority.
Right. But something like the levy board is a state created agency that the parish does not have any control over, that cannot abolish.
Good point. Okay.
So then, I'm sorry. Okay, thank you. So then just rewording such that maybe to include, just for clarification.
Yeah, then we could put it in AI and see what comes out.
And I mean, we do also, it's called the Boards and Commissions Guide. that has all of those different boards and commissions and says what their authority is in terms of its creation and appointment, that you can refer to. But again, some of this is not black and white. There's a lot of gray.
Yeah. I think if you don't mind reviewing that a little bit, and you can let us know. Because I think it's going to get real complicated. And I don't even know if you'd want to attach something to a charter that says, you know, like, what's the legal term, Scott, for yeah, addendum or something attached to with a list of those items. I got you thinking there, Scott, what you're thinking.
I'm wondering, Emily, if we can, without naming boards and commissions. Yeah, I'm wondering if without naming specific boards and commissions, you can generally explain the gray area where there is state enabling or parish enabling with state approving, because it is very gray, but the circumstances that make them gray, I think, could maybe help clarify this, because this seems to be E seems to broadly mention boards and commissions, and we know that's not a correct statement because of the unique nature of a handful of boards and commissions. So maybe describing the nature of what makes those boards and commissions unique, we could clarify that broad statement to exclude those boards and commissions where library, mosquito abatement, any others have different modifying legalities. I'm trying to use the right word, but I think you know where I'm thinking right now, without having to list everything. Maybe finding that explanation could help take away the broad nature of that E section, I think. And I'll be happy to think about that too with you and look at it. Okay.
Great, thank you. So we're on 806. Okay, we'll move on here. Administrative boards and commissions. Hopefully you've looked through that. Council of A by ordinance. Create, consolidate, merge, abolish, or reorganize any administrative boards or commissions in existence. At the date of this charter becomes effective. Members of all existing administrative boards and commissions shall complete their terms of office except what's provided by the charter. Is there, that brings up an interesting question. Is it state law or parish ordinance? If someone's not reappointed, do they continue to serve at the pleasure? I've never seen that. I don't really know what that rule is.
Yes. So there are multiple AG opinions. I'm not sure that it's stated anywhere in the revised statutes, but that stands for the proposition that an appointed member of a board continues to serve beyond the expiration of their term unless and until they're replaced. Is that your question?
Yes, because I thought there was some issues over the years about if they voted on some particular issue or financial issues,
right.
Are they legal? Are they a part of a quorum even though they weren't reappointed?
Yes. There's multiple AG opinions that state that is correct, but that's not explicitly stated in any statute or ordinance.
So it really doesn't need to be in here to clarify any of that because
I don't
of the
think so.
state law. Okay. Any questions, comments? 807. In the event of war, I hope not, public disaster, they act on an emergency basis. All right, any comments or question on 807? None. 808. control over local public agencies and special districts. Item A.
Question?
Yes, sir.
Do economic development districts fall into 808?
No. They're not created by the parish governing authority.
Okay. Anything? B, parish government may consolidate, merge into itself any special district or local public agency except school districts. So we would not need legislation if they wanted to, if the parish government wanted to take in one of the agencies that they created and make them a department. They have the authority to do that.
Again, probably in most cases, but there are some cases where that's not going to be true. So for an average rec district, an average fire district, yes, that is true. However, there are certain cases that have special state legislation where I think it's Section 1 of this charter says that any provision in the charter cannot conflict with general state law. So if there is a general state law that specifically addresses a board or agency, there may be some instances where it's not true that the parish governing authority can, abolish, merge, or act as the board for such a district.
So, and look, I'm not insinuating anything. Our job is to just look at everything, and that's what we're doing.
Right.
So if you wanted to take, and it seems like you have to use examples to make our really think about it. And I know you're on the mosquito control, so I mean nothing about that. They do a great job. But so under this section, could you take them and make them a department down the hall?
You could abolish that district as a separate entity and make them a department, but as the state law stands now, you could not take the millage that they receive and use that money from that millage.
Oh, I agree with that.
And
Yeah,
direct that yourself as parish government.
I agree. I was just wondering.
Sure.
No intent. I'm just asking the question.
And let's use, a hospital service district, for instance. St. Tammany Parish Hospital Service District number 1
Yeah.
is created by the state legislature. So even though this says any governmental entity in St. Tammany Parish besides the school board, the parish council, the parish government could not actually abolish Hospital Service District 1 without an act of the legislature because it was created by and is governed by the state law, the revised statute. It would have to be an act of the legislature that did that.
Okay. Okay. I was just thinking. Mr. Sims?
Do you think it'd be helpful just to put a one-liner in here that just states that doesn't otherwise directly conflict with boards created by or mandated by state law?
And again, I go back to...
I mean, it does it on its own. I mean, just for purposes of if it's more helpful to the public to see that language, even though you can't anyway. Kind of the same thing before from the last comment.
Yeah.
A resolution, an ordinance, a state law, neither can override or conflict with the other. It's
right.
What makes sense to us now. I think what Emily's saying to one of her points, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that it's kind of like if you create it, then your hands may be tied by other rules by
Right.
state or otherwise. But creating or dissolving, you can do, but there are repercussions by way of losing maybe a funding stream or other things that you can't just move over. But naturally, you can't conflict with the higher authority and be beyond the scope of what you're allowed to do.
Right.
But maybe an explanation to a general reading of the public may be helpful to someone who doesn't know that. And maybe we should consider adding something that states what is. Just an idea.
Sure.
Talking point.
I concur it is elsewhere, but I kind of agree with his point that if it just reinforced it at this location. Thank you. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
to Mr. Sims' point, which is a good one, I think you should put that language in there because AI will tell you very quickly, yes, in Louisiana, state statutes protect mosquito abatement from abolishment. Specifically, RS 33:7721 establishes the legal framework for mosquito abatement districts, which are political subdivisions with the power to manage mosquito control within their defined areas. These districts are authorized to levy taxes and implement various control measures. So state law is going to trump, and I think that you really need to look closely into those sorts of situations before people get it in their heads that they can abolish or merge or consolidate just to save, maybe just to save the energy.
Yeah.
That's what I would hope.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of what we're working towards right now.
Yeah, AI.
And please, I know it does good.
Can be your friend.
There was no intent. I was just trying to give examples. That's our job.
It just I know, but it just keeps coming up, and I think that
I'll try to
because you keep it keeps coming up, put it to rest. Find out what the truth is, find out what the law is and the state statutes are, and segregate those that are not applicable. That's my suggestion to you.
That's what we're looking at.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, cool.
I'll comment again.
Wait.
I think we're going to do the research and rely upon the legal department, not AI, to determine what the council can and can't do, and then they'll be advised, and then we'll evaluate on behalf of the taxpayers from a cost expenditure standpoint if it continues to make sense to have the taxpayers have almost $10 million of their money per year charged to them to spray for mosquitoes in the parish.
Whew, I think they should. I think they will, and they have historically. So let's look at it.
Don't know.
Great, thank you.
All right, Mr. Shane.
Mr. Shane.
Yeah, I would just suggest to all of us, and that certainly includes me, but let's don't be too sensitive about our discussions as it relates to the topic. We're trying to learn, discuss, and vet. We don't need to suggest that there's paranoia because no one's taken a position of starting a movement today. So I think we need to keep having the questions though and the comments.
I agree.
That's good because it brings those to the forefront, but we don't need to advocate yet. There's going to be a time to advocate, and that's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
No, and I agree with you 100%, which is all of it has to be evaluated and on the table, and nothing should be sacrosanct or personal. There are things that there's a total amount of money, there's a certain structure, there's different forms of parish government. Every single person's entity is being evaluated, looked at. We can't, the whole point of all this is to, what can we do better? What can we do more efficiently? Can we do the same things for less money? Can we do the things more uniformly and efficiently with a different form of government? I don't think we know the answer to that, but to sit here and not look and not consider and not evaluate everything, every single department, DA's office, judicial, everything would be us just doing the same thing over and over because that's how it's always done. And I think anyone who's ever come into an organization and tried to make change and they're inevitably told, I don't know, that's just how we've always done it, I think is very frustrating, and that should not be.
Yeah, I'm with you. Thank you. Any other comments? Okay.
Well, I believe in order. I'm not just going to speak out. To build on my colleague, Mr. Shane's point, we have taken no action and have suggested no action at this point. We have been in a, as to quote my friend Jeff Corbin, drinking from a fire hose, trying to learn all the things that have gone on. And I want to let you know what the purpose of this thing is. In 2000, we had 191,000 residents. In 2010, 234. In 2020, 264. We basically have 280,000 people. And if you watch the last meeting on Thursday and the number of houses that we have slotted that are in the track to come in, we're going to hit 300,000 real easy. The whole purpose of this is to review our home rule charter to see if we need to make any changes to our form of government, or we could just rubber stamp it and say, hey, this is fine, we're going to keep it the way it is. But I think with that type of population growth, what we're doing is worthwhile. And there is no reason for anybody to be defensive or to try to defend their fiefdom, because I think we all love St. Tammany in our own way, and we're here to try to make it better. And none of us are getting, the majority of us, except for the 4 council members, we're not getting paid to do this. So
They didn't tell me that we weren't getting paid.
Well, to be determined for you, sir.
Right. Thank you. Okay. Item B, consolidate merge. All right, let's go on. Any questions in there? Item C, special districts. Okay, 809, recall. I guess it has to, it says it actually is provided in general laws of the state, so. Go ahead, Emily.
And it is specific to recall elections, though, not to propositions and referendums that you and I discussed earlier.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
I'll still research that issue to see if there is anything that prohibits us from going below the 10% or 20% for those.
Great.
But just for everyone's edification, for recall elections, if the voting area is less than 1,000 electors, the petition has to be signed by 40% of the qualified electors. If it's between 1,000 to 25,000, it's 33 1/3% to recall. If it's of electors in the voting area between 25,000 up to 100,000, you need 25% to recall an official. And in any area where the electors in the voting area are over 100,000, it's 20% of the qualified voters to recall elected official.
Great. Thank you. 810, removal by suit. I think it goes to general laws of the state and the state constitution. 901, continuation of actions. Civil procedures. Item B, all action or administrative rules. I don't hear anything, so section 902, special districts. They continue to exist. 903, fees, charges, and tax levies.
And just so y'all are aware, this is Article 9 of the charter. These are all the transitional provisions from when they were transitioning from a police jury
Right.
to a home rule charter in 2000. So a lot of these things are necessary and were important at the time that the charter was adopted, but may not be pertinent to what we're doing here today.
So from a legal standpoint, do you want to look at any of those, see if they need to be taken out, or just leave them?
I think they are all important that they remain.
Just
in
remain,
place.
yeah, because yeah.
Yes.
They don't hurt anything. I mean, they were when we went from the police jury.
Right.
Legislative acts, 904, 905, the retirement system. So, like it says, it was transferring over from the police jury over. Declaration of intent on 906. (907) severability, which is quite common. 908, violation of Voting Rights Act. I don't. 909, schedule of transition. That was when it all would happen back then. That's all. The election of officers. 9-11 required approval in the charter ballot. Okay, I didn't hear anything on those remaining items, so we are now complete through.
Kevin, question.
I'm sorry?
And I'm sorry, we have to back up to
It's okay.
903, subparagraph E is an echo.
903?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Y'all, you moved me on, I was still.
Go ahead.
We talked about protect these districts that the money is dedicated and we can't do anything about that. Here's the question.
Microphone.
Yeah. Press that one. We have it a little backwards.
Now you're on.
This one says Scott Delacroix. Scott, this question I'm talking for you. This is your question. I'm sorry. However, but, right now we have taxing bodies in this parish that have 100% of their funds in the bank. So they're still getting funds for this fiscal year, okay? Can you put a provision in here that says you can only have enough funds in reserve for some period of time, whatever that is? 90 days, 180 days, not 365 days. So you can't build that cushion into the property tax because the taxpayers are voting to run that whatever it is for a fiscal year. That's what I assume when I pay my property taxes.
Yeah.
But I think it's unreasonable to say that you can have 100% of your annual revenue in the bank and then still go forward for the year that you're in.
So they all get their money January-ish. A little bit comes in February and March, but most of the money comes January. So your question is, should they be able to have balances?
Have in January, when they get their money, and they still already have a year's worth of revenue in their bank account, all right?
Oh, okay.
You follow me?
Okay,
So-
I get you now.
So they're getting, they will get their fiscal year money.
Yeah.
But they already have a fiscal year's worth of money in the bank,
Yeah.
in quotes.
Okay. I understand your question. So if their budget was 10 million, I guess they could have saved up over some years, and they have $8 million in reserves, and they get another 10 million in January.
So what's a reasonable amount of money to have in reserve?
Reserve.
For any taxing body,
Yeah.
particularly those that, like police and fire, got to deal with disasters and so forth.
Yeah.
But I'm not talking about.
Yeah. Do we have jurisdiction?
We have jurisdiction over the parish government and those entities where we control their budgets, such as the library. But as far as like a fire district or a rec district, those are separate legal entities. And while the parish governing authority has the ability to abolish or consolidate or merge those districts, we do not have the authority to govern those districts and state in our charter how they can manage their millages. That would have to be state legislation.
Okay, so if you abolish a district or consolidate, let's say you consolidate, pick fire districts or whatever, then somebody's going to still be running that and managing that money, I assume. Let's say you use rec districts. Suppose you did stuff like New Orleans has with NORD, okay? So all the districts in New Orleans come under NORD. So if the parish were to consolidate recs, could they then therefore say, to manage the funds and say, we're not going to let you have a year's worth of revenue in the bank?
If the parish were to abolish recreation districts and pull recreation management back under the parish government umbrella, yes.
Okay, all right.
When we lose the funding, correct?
Yes. Any existing millages or sales taxes we would lose.
You lose the existing funding.
You'd have to go back.
You have to go back out and have the taxpayers
Arthur?
authorize a millage in replacement, otherwise it's gone.
Yeah, so Carl, I believe, and Emily, correct me if I'm wrong, to your point, if we were to enact that control, it would be limited to the 5 or 6 budgets that actually come through us. Is that correct?
Yes, I mean, I think parish governments and the libraries are the only ones.
So it's 5. So it's our 4 millages and, oh yeah,
I'm not
Coast.
sure about Coast and Stark, but
Yeah, but like that, it would be unfortunately limited. And then if we did, if we did eliminate, we would lose revenue. And then if we did consolidate, we'd have to worry about bonded debt. In, like if we consolidated 2 rec districts that had funding, if they had any bonding debt or like a fire district, then we'd have to treat that separately, correct?
yes. And to consolidate, you'd still have to have an election.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ms. Tanner.
Okay.
Ms. Tanner?
All right, any entity that has bonds out there, those bonds has to be paid off. That funding stream has to be kept in place until whatever year, say it's 2030. It has to be kept in place to pay off those bonds, okay? So it wouldn't immediately end, but it will be, they have to look at the bonds first.
Yeah. So I think a better example would be like lighting districts, because you got them all over. So we wanted to go to one lighting district. That might be a...
Sure, and we could have something in our home rule charter. I mean, we don't have boards for these lighting districts. They are parish entities.
Yeah.
And you could have a provision that says
They're
that
done
the
by
lighting
ordinance,
district
I
shall
guess.
not have more than 1 year's revenue in
Yeah.
its fund balance, and we could enforce that.
Yeah, but that'd be an example, because that, I mean, that is run by the parish government, so. Okay. All right, we are now finished going through, I thought we were going to be here longer, but we are now finished with the charter. I know there were many items and things that we discussed. I know there's some items to research. I don't know if we need some more time. I think we've added a couple of more.
Yes, so, I mean, I've started doing my drafts of proposed language for section 206, 401, 410, 412, 502, and I'll add 601, 802, 806, 808. But if you all are considering doing something major, like changing the form of government, that's going to, completely overhaul what it is that I'm doing in drafting. So while I can draft these small tweaks that we've discussed, I think what you all need to decide if we're going to do something major, such as addressing the form of government.
Yeah, and I think I kind of told the members, and correct me if you don't agree, that the next meeting, I will be accepting motions for those type of changes, is kind of what we discussed when we were in Slidell. Because we're finished now, and I agree with Emily, I don't want to go do a lot of research and then we change the form of government, which, so I'm going to ask you all to kind of go back and think about those items that you really want to push, and I do want to ask the question as chairman, I don't think I can move on a motion. Is that correct?
That's
Right.
generally how we
Yeah,
operate
so-
in parish government.
It's your job? Okay, you're going to move on it? Because, I mean, there are things that I really like. I think that's why they gave me this job, so I couldn't move on anything. But I'd really like to start getting into the heat of it next meeting, if that's all right with everybody. We're about 20 minutes away from meeting today, but we got to give a lot of thought to what your interest, what we've gone through, and we can put on the agenda these items, the research items. Probably ought to do, I mean, folks, we probably ought to do form of government first. Let's get that out of the way before we spend a lot of time on some other items. I mean, I'll tell you, I'll be honest, I really like the OIG. Some people here may not, that's fine. I don't think that impacts the form of government, but...
To that point of the OIG, we may want to bring, like we have today, as speakers to come in and talk, like the representative that drafted the legislation that's currently at the state, to come in and speak. Maybe get New Orleans IG to come in and speak. So that when we get to that point, I don't know if it's next time or not, when we get to that point, we can have somebody to come in that's on the professional side of that, or the state side, to come in and address that.
Okay, well, help me out here. What's the consensus? If we, is it okay to submit anybody else you'd like to speak? Can you all do that? If there's somebody else you want to speak on a particular issue? Because don't you agree, we'd like to get them done right away? This is just me speaking. the OIG I just believe in, so I'd be ready to discuss that next meeting or the meeting after, whatever.
Are we going to bring someone in?
I'm sorry?
Are we going to bring someone in?
Whatever y'all like to do.
Okay, you know, there's a resolution that the council passed that if it's Inspector General, it has to go to a vote of the people, and a funding source should be voted on.
Yeah, with all due respect, all we do is recommend it to you guys. That's all we do. Then you can say, no, we don't want to do that because it costs too much money. I'm fine with that. That's the way I thought we built the system.
I mean, the bottom line is we don't have money to pay for it.
Okay. I don't know. We compare that particular item to New Orleans. We're not New Orleans. I don't think you need 6 people in an OIG's office. I think you need 1. A good attorney has 1,500 to 2,000 clients. If he doesn't, he's not real good. That's just my opinion. So how much is that going to cost? I would say, let's look, that's your job. Let's look at the budget and you eliminate something if you believe that that's one of the items you want the public to vote on, because they're going to get the vote on it. You see what I'm saying? We're not mandating.
But I've also looked at the budget.
Yeah,
we don't have it.
We're not demanding or. I know y'all did the resolution, but I don't have the budget to be able to tell you where to save the money. And I don't know that that's my job, but that's just my opinion. Mary?
Can I just maybe make a suggestion as we look to the next meeting? So in your packet that you got today, it included from Christine an initial where she started taking notes of the topics that we've discussed.
Right.
And we will add to that. Can you please let us know, like you said, if there's any other speakers, or if there's something on the list you want, even not just a speaker, us to do research or a memo on, let us know so that when you have those discussions, whether we have a draft change or not, or just something you want to learn more about, we can help you be prepared for that. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I was at. If there's anything else you want somebody to speak on, that's fine. Just let us know, and we'll try to make that happen. But Cheryl, I don't know how to address, I'm just trying to be as honest.
I understand.
I don't know how to address that.
Well, and the other thing I'm worried about, how's this going to be appointed?
Who?
I mean, it gets into politics when you start appointing a position like that. And we don't need any more politics in St. Tammany.
Well, under what I think is the correct way would be the council would appoint that individual. But anyway, go ahead.
I like procedure. So I have a contact at the Orleans Parish OIG, and I have a contact at Jefferson Parish OIG. If you want, I can have someone come speak at our next meeting. Mr.
Impostano?
Well, first of all, it will be fine for somebody to speak, but what we're just talking about is changing the charter so we would be able to have the position if we wanted the position.
Correct.
It's even a little different than the state legislature. And since we're probably not going to review the charter for another 10 years, it's something we should consider.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not saying you do it now. All I'm saying is you add it to the charter that says you can add that office.
Right.
Because they're changing state law and everything else. And if you don't agree, that's why we have this democracy. When we vote, you vote the other way. That's all. And I'm not upset. It's just we're having open discussion. And I don't know why. I'll just use that as an example, like I got in trouble with the mosquito control. I was just using that as an example. We're ready.
Right.
I mean, I've gotten a lot of information, and I'm ready.
And I agree with Ms. Tanner, and what she was saying is we need to make sure we understand there's a cost to that. It would have to go out to a proposition, and the people would have to decide if they want to fund that additional cost. And we know how sensitive it is in regards to people paying more taxes right now.
Hey, I'm all for it. If the people go for it, and if they give us a revenue source, so be it.
Kevin, one more. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I would suggest that everyone here read the proposed legislation that covers the OIG. It has a self-funding paragraph in it. And so I would just suggest y'all read it.
Yeah, I thank you for that. But it's like even, we have these items on here, the research. These were some of the things that we wanted to discuss, the form of government. I mean, I expect either there's no motion or there's a motion for some kind of a government other than what is here. Legal department, I know we all discussed and we kind of all agreed, we felt comfortable with what's in here, but if somebody wants to make a motion other, then they have the right to do that. And certainly we could vote on that. So I just want you to feel you can do that, is what I guess I'm trying to say.
We're going to vote next meeting?
It could, if you have something.
I'm just not going to be here for that, not on the calendar, so I just want to either have someone else prepare.
What's that?
What? Maybe that's a good thing, I don't know.
I didn't hear what he said.
I think if you polled, it could be a good thing, I don't know. If I need to get a substitute, I just want to make sure I prepare them. Are you guys planning on taking these
what
major
I'm trying to ask you. We don't have any more of the charter to actually go through, but independent auditor was a discussion that somebody really, go ahead, Jeff.
No, finish up.
Investigative authority, legal department, private-public partnership in the form of government. We didn't put OIG in there, but and this evening we had a couple of more, which are possible charter recommendations, not changes, because we only recommend, are possible recommendations. So, Mr. Sims, possibly somebody next meeting could.
I just need to know from an agenda standpoint, if we know that from an agenda standpoint that we're going to be taking these votes, not maybe, but I just need to know.
Ask again.
Go ahead.
I'm ready to speak. That's okay.
Go ahead.
Couple of thoughts. If one of the things I think we've done best on this committee is to continue to educate ourselves. And since the OIG issue has been there from the beginning and is not going to go away, and it should be there for review, we need to have some speakers. I think we need to be educated. The other thing I'd suggest, though, is that I, for one, would like to see the input that staff will give us as it relates to these topics before we start making motions and choosing a form of government.
That's what I was saying.
Right, but I mean, the point is, Colin, I don't think there'll be any way we'll be making motions next week, because my suggestion is that if we could try to have one of these meetings, but know that it's a work session. It's not a night where there's going to be a motion. Think about what's going to happen, guys. First motion out the box, form of government. We're going to take a vote. There's going to be winners and there's going to be losers, and it's going to impact the rest of our discussion. I'm not afraid to make a motion or make a vote, but I think I'd like to have all of the material in front of me before I put myself in that position. For example, if I feel that there are good things that we can do by way of recommendation to the council to reconstruct our existing charter, that might encourage me to stay with this form of government. But if I see the things that we have assigned for legal to look at, and after we have our work session discussion, and I don't really think we're doing a very good job of really changing some of the things that some of us think may need to be changed, that's going to influence the form of government vote for me. So,
Agree.
So I'd like to hear some more on the OIG, and I'd like to hear, and I'm not trying to be laborious in terms of asking folks to continue to work for us, but I think a lot of that work product's already in place. It'd be a shame if we didn't get it, see it, and I'd like us to talk about it without a motion on the floor, because I think our discussions will be more healthy.
Yeah. I'm sorry if I didn't kind of, I just want to prepare people to remember, after you have debated the issue, you do or don't have to make a motion. It's not that I'm saying you got to do something. My point is that's the time to do it. Sure. We debated it, and if we're just going to leave that section alone, then that's fine. So what we'll do is next 2 weeks is a review of these items with the other items attached, please, Emily? And since I mentioned OI, will you make the contact, and we'll put them first on the agenda for speakers if we can get them? If nothing else, we could do them on video. Yes, sir?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think we broke down on our ability to hit the buttons, and it would like tell you that someone's waiting to talk on here.
Yeah, we're hot right now. So if someone presses the button, they turn their mic on.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't know what setting we're on,
Yeah,
but
we
we're
used to say I could just ask permission to talk, and it's not saying that anymore.
Yeah.
It's just saying microphone active. I assume that means I'm up.
Yeah.
I could be wrong.
He handles that, so I don't take,
You don't take the credit. for
yeah, I
that?
don't take
Am I up?
responsibility.
Can I be up?
Yes, sir. I'm old school. You're next.
I find it difficult with this format. Like, let's just say right now, you know, we're talking about voting between current form of government and then this new thing. It would be nice to be able to sit down in a work session and talk about our current form of government and really get to the nuts and bolts. I mean, I know we kind of went through like
Yes.
each charter thing, but like some of the things that could be tweaked or salvaged, but like in a, I don't know, like a circle. I feel like we're talking that like there's whoever's here. I mean, and I want people to be able to listen, but if we could actually work and look at things, and I find it difficult that this to be a productive work session.
In this format?
Yeah. And maybe we could still make it to where everyone could hear, but we could actually, I don't know, like I'm not even looking at you guys.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? I mean, I know it sounds weird, but it just doesn't seem like a work.
No, I like the concept. I just don't know how we get there.
You can even push these tables together, and we could do
Well,
it.
I think we're also limited because it has to be a public meeting. That
Right.
is,
That's fine.
That's what I mean, but like if we just move, I mean,
And then
we're all
really
looking
have
out
to-
here and we're talking to each other about the pros and cons of government and very intricate little things here. And I don't know, that's, if this works for you guys, that's great. We can keep doing it.
I'm open to anything, or it's not me, it's our committee, so whatever the committee wants to do. I don't know if we can we do work groups separate from
You can't have a quorum.
smaller groups? Can't have a quorum. So what's our
You can
quorum?
either do it with less than a quorum in small groups, or we can just do the agenda and notice under the open meetings law and set it as a work session. And I think as long as there aren't going to be any votes on any resolutions taken, then I don't think that we're going to be required to record it and broadcast it. I think the broadcast has been helpful so people can participate remotely, but if you're going to do just an open conversation, it will still have to be open to the public, but we could do it in the staff conference room, get around a round table, put up notice.
Yeah, that's
24
what
hours
I'm
before the
wondering. I mean,
meeting.
let's be honest, it's a little uncomfortable. I like Gina, and I don't want to say anything about the administration, you know, and the changes that would affect her, and I don't want to do the same with legal, so it'd be nice to kind of, if we could do some smaller work groups on specifics. And none of us, we know, there's never a vote in that.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah, I mean, you can direct Christine
Jeff?
and ask her to set up work groups of, 5 people and dates and times for you all to meet and discuss those issues.
Jeff?
I don't want to be the odd guy out, but I'd like to keep the whole group together, but have a work group concept. But I think we should do it through the same forum with public meeting and everyone having an opportunity to physically attend, watch us, join us, and comment. Maybe what we could do, are we in Slidell in 2 weeks or no?
yeah, I think we're here.
No.
We're here?
Going forward.
I
Well,
think
but I
we're
think
here.
one of the things that you and the DA have mentioned, which would really be good, it maybe the work group discussion would be more productive if we shared a table and we could have a better eye contact, and I think we might actually feel a little more connected, and we wouldn't necessarily have to press buttons, because you're a very good leader. I don't mean to suggest that, but I think what we're trying to develop is a family around a kitchen table having a discussion. So I think maybe what we'll do is, let's see if staff, we can think about a way to change a configuration right here and get us all sitting. If we had a third table, and we can I'm sure we can figure out a way to get all of us down there in an oval type arrangement. Maybe that will help the discussions. We can still have, if we need to, recording, I know is something we've got to tackle and figure out. If not, we'll do it from right here. We still have the work session right here. But I think let's make sure that we continue to do everything with the public present and the public watching it and listening to it, because that's going to ultimately be the litmus test for whether we've done our job. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
And I'd like to, I really like that, because just keeping it here and just having it open, because, you know, I don't want any perception of anything was discussed in a separate setting.
Okay.
Everything needs to be out and open. And then I really like what I'm hearing as far as getting this background information, you know, as to before we decide to change or decide to do anything, let's really, you know, kind of delve into it a little bit deeper, and having that closeness or whatever if possible. When we're in that setting, we can ask those questions, because you guys have lived it, you know, those of you who are on council, and you've been here, so absolutely. I like the idea of that being for next week.
Okay.
All for it.
Great.
Yeah, well, 2 weeks, yeah, in 2 weeks on the 23rd.
Mr. Sims?
And I think it'd be helpful, like some of the things, like I feel like we're missing also like the, I don't know which one works. I feel like we're missing like some of the, like the mechanical things, like the delay periods in budget, like the digesting of those things. Like what are those mechanical things that are causing issues that could be fixed without picking something totally different, or the things that we're trying to fix are mounting up to such a degree that we do need to be looking at something different. I think both things could be true. I mean, if you're making so many tweaks to something that it's not recognizable, well, then you look at doing something new and different, right?
Yeah.
But if you're making minor adjustments of things that are really causing a fundamental breakdown that's causing the greatest amount of friction, but they're very easy tweaks, whether it be involvement of council, whether it be timing, whatever these things are, I feel like we're not getting to that. Does that make sense to anyone? Okay.
No, we yield to existing council members to help us, and the administration in those conflicts. Mary?
So just throwing it out there, and y'all say how you think about it. So what I'm hearing is the next meeting, number one, we want to finish up with speakers, right? That if there's anybody else that we want to come and speak, to listen to them. And maybe instead of talk outside of the speakers, talking about specific subjects, we have more of an open conversation of what's working in the parish and what's not. Because I think that kind of discussion would better frame us and focus on when you go to talk about specific topics to see, is that change going to help or hurt? Right where we are now. So you might want to, and you know what I'm saying? Because I think sometimes we get so bogged down, like you're saying, and we need that higher view because we've been looking at it so closely.
Yeah.
Just a suggestion.
Motion to adjourn. I'm sorry? Motion to adjourn. Yeah, so everybody's in agreement. We'll follow that guideline for next meeting. Sims won't be here.
Yes, sir.
I'll confirm there'll be no votes unless they surprise me, so you don't have to worry. With that, I thank you all, and I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Yep.
So move. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.